The village stood in a shallow valley surrounded by dense forests. The kind of forests where sunlight struggled to reach the ground even at noon. For generations, nothing remarkable had ever happened there. No great battles, no famous kings, no disasters that would place its name on a map. It was a village that existed quietly and noticed by history, living and dying at its own slow pace. Sleep had always been easy there. People worked until sunset, ate simple meals, and went to bed early. Night fell gently, accompanied by the sound of insects, distant owls, and the steady rhythm of breathing from open windows. Dreams came and went without meaning, and mornings arrived without resistance. The rhythm broke without warning. It began with a single meh, then a second, then a handful of others. They complained casually at first, laughing about restless nights and heavy thoughts. Insomnia was not unusual after all, but this was not ordinary insomnia. This was complete absence of sleep. No drifting, no half dreams, no moments of unconsciousness. Just endless awareness. Night after night, eyes remained open. At first, the village tried to ignore it. People blamed stress, bad air, or the changing season. But the problem did not move on. It settled and spread slowly, like fog creeping through the streets. Within days, dozens were affected. They lay in their beds listening to every sound, wood expanding in the cold, footsteps of animals, the distant wind pressing against the hills. The darkness felt heavier than before, not threatening, but oppressive. Time stretched unnaturally. An hour felt like a lifetime. By the end of the first week, exhaustion was visible everywhere. Faces lost color, hands trembled. Conversations became fragmented and strange, as if people were speaking through water. Children cried more often, unable to explain why they felt afraid of the night. Sleep never came. Doctors from neighboring towns arrived, examined everyone, and found nothing wrong. No signs of disease, no toxins, no infections. The water was tested. The soil was examined. Everything was normal. But the nights remained endless. As the days passed, the effects grew darker. People began to experience hallucinations. Some saw movement in the corners of their eyes. Others heard whispering sounds that vanished when they turned their heads. Shadows appeared longer, deeper, almost alive. The forest surrounding the village became a source of unease. Trees seemed closer than before. Paths felt narrower. People avoided walking alone, especially after sunset. Dogs refused to enter the woods at night and instead gathered near houses, whining softly. After 2 weeks without sleep, fear replaced confusion. Arguments broke out over nothing. Long-standing friendships collapsed. Small misunderstandings turned into violent shouting. The village felt unstable, as if the ground itself were shifting beneath their feet. Several villagers claimed they heard the same thing at night, a low, constant murmur beneath the silence. It was not a voice, not exactly, but something like breath moving through earth. Most dismissed it as imagination caused by exhaustion, but the reports continued. No one slept. By the third week, physical breakdown began. People collapsed while working. Some forgot how to perform simple tasks. A man stood in the middle of the road for hours, unable to remember where he was going. A woman attempted to cook a meal and forgot what fire was. The church became a refuge. Candles burned all night. Prayers repeated endlessly, not for miracles, but for rest. Some believed the village was cursed. Others believed something beneath the land had been disturbed. The elders spoke quietly among themselves, recalling fragments of stories passed down through generations. Stories of graves moved long ago, of land that had once been avoided, of warnings ignored when the village expanded centuries earlier. No one knew whether these stories were true or simply inventions born from fear. Attempts were made to leave. A few villagers packed their belongings and tried to walk away before nightfall. Some returned hours later, confused and terrified, claiming the road stretched endlessly or twisted back toward the village. Others collapsed before reaching the farthest edge, their bodies refusing to move any farther. Whether these experiences were real or the result of extreme sleep deprivation did not matter. The message was clear. Escape was not easy. By the fourth week, time lost meaning. Days blurred together. People measured time by hunger and exhaustion rather than clocks. Some stopped speaking altogether. Others laughed at nothing, their laughter empty and disturbing. Sleep became something people feared as much as they desired. Many believed that if they finally closed their eyes, they would never wake again. Beds were avoided. Lamps stayed lit. Night was no longer a time for rest, but a trial to be endured. Animals began to behave strangely. Chickens stopped laying eggs. Horses refused to move at night. Even insects seemed quieter, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Then something unexpected happened. A young girl collapsed into sleep. It was sudden and violent, as if her body had finally shut itself down. She fell where she stood, breathing shallowly, unresponsive. The village gathered round her, terrified. Some believed she had died. Others believed she had crossed into something worse. She slept for hours. When she finally woke, she screamed. She described a dream unlike anything anyone had ever heard. A place without light or sound, filled with pressure rather than images. She said she felt watched, not by eyes, but by something aware. Something that did not want the living to rest above it. Her words spread fear, but also clarity. The elders decided the village had to act. At dawn, they gathered tools and walked toward a forgotten part of the land near the forest, a place avoided out of habit rather than reason. They began to dig. What they found was old and disturbed, bones scattered without order, markers broken and buried improperly, evidence that the dead had been moved carelessly long ago to make room for new homes and fields. The villagers worked until their bodies screamed in protest. They reburied what they could. They marked the ground. They said no prayers, only silence. That night, something changed. Sleep returned slowly, cautiously, as if testing whether it was safe. Some slept for minutes, others for hours. Dreams were filled with darkness and fear, but they were dreams nonetheless. Over the following nights, rest spread unevenly, unsteadily. The whispers stopped. The shadows faded. The forest retreated to its old distance. The village survived, but it never forgot. Some people never fully recovered their health. Some left forever. Children born later grew up hearing warnings about the land and the importance of respect for what lies beneath. No official explanation was ever accepted. Psychologists later suggested mass hysteria triggered by environmental stress. Scientists pointed to neurological collapse caused by shared trauma. None of these explanations satisfied those who lived through it. They knew what it felt like. They remembered the nights without end, the fear of closing their eyes, the slow loss of identity. They understood something simple and terrifying. Sleep is not guaranteed, and when it disappears, so does everything else.